Hi, I'm Jeff Lowe, Chief Executive Officer of Asian Sky Group, Asian Sky Media. Here we have another one of our video casts as part of our release of our year-end 2020 Asia Pacific Helicopter Fleet Report. It's a great pleasure to have on the call today, and if you will, live and in person, Mark Windsor from JSSI. Mark is the Senior VP of Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and APAC as well. So, Mark, good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Jeff, and good afternoon for you.
Yes.
So I hope everything's well with you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to have a chat with you today. And always a pleasure to see you, and good to have a chat.
Always a pleasure to have you present us with your insights on the industry, certainly from the support side and the services side, which is great. What we've been generally doing is sort of taking a look back at how 2020 was. Obviously, it's our year-end fleet report, so part of that is to look back at 2020 and see how we all survived. We're all still here. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And so in some cases, it was a good year, strangely enough. As I've said many times, you hate to talk about silver linings during a pandemic, but for some parts of our business, it has, in a strange way, led to improved business as well. So, if I may, if you can just look back at 2020 and maybe where those challenges were, but where the opportunities were, and how those materialized in the end.
Sure, Jeff. I think you've just summarised it perfectly there. And I think JSSI fits into a number of things in the categories that you've just spoken to. 2020 started off January, February, beginning of March, from a business development perspective, as a real steam train. We were running away with new business, and then all of a sudden, everything stops and flight hours fall off a cliff, and the pandemic comes along, and we faced a number of challenges that everyone faced and is well documented. But interestingly, what it did do was, I think it created a number of opportunities for us. Internally, it created an opportunity for us to look at how we run our business, what we needed to do to be able to protect our business and also make it more efficient. And they were opportunities that we grasped with both hands. And I think that we'll be forever looking back now and saying that this was, there are certain things that we had to put in place that we'll take on in years to come that will be major improvement for our business. The other thing that it did was...
Feel the same.
Great.
We did things that we probably may have done eventually, sort of affair, but...
Exactly.
And a lot of that was just getting lean and mean. So
exactly. And one of the things, or the biggest thing to come out of it for us, I believe, was that we have the right people. We didn't furlough anyone. We didn't lay anyone off. We were looking to streamline our business, if you like, in terms of our processes to make us more efficient. Yeah. But what happened was our people really stepped up. And that enabled JSSI to be able to really look at what we were, what we are, and what we wanted to be, and then work towards that. Without the people, without them really stepping up and making sacrifices, in terms of various things through the company, particularly with their time. Right, particularly putting hours in and making sure our customers were being dealt with. We were able to come through the pandemic fairly successfully, I believe, and that's one of the things that really sticks out with me. Is yes, we were able to get lean and mean and become more efficient, but our people really stepped up to the plate. In terms of our customers, it was very challenging. And we had to recognize that our customers were in a challenging position, and we also had to recognize how can we help them. We had the discounts that we offered on our minimums. We held our rates in 2020 as well. And that was very well received. And, there are certain other things that we had to do with customers on an individual basis to make them, to support them through that busy time. my attitude and JSSI's attitude is always the same. If we support them, they'll support us through the long term. And I believe that as we started coming out of the real down times in March and April, that really stood us in good stead.
Yeah, no, ditto for a lot of your comments. Same experience, if you will, here at Asian Sky Group, Asian Sky Media. At the end of the day, as we all know, we're in a people business, and
for sure.
And we're in a services business as well, which require the right people to if you will, deliver that service and back it up. And so likewise, I can gladly sort of say the same. We came through, had one of our better years, but again, it wasn't without people making themselves available, either because they're working at home and so on, at some pretty screwy times of the day for them, and a lot of families trying to manage everything else that came along with the pandemic, kids at home and everything else, but still putting that aside when they needed to and providing the support when they needed to make sure that, as you just said, both your company and the one that I work for and the one that you work for, we came through successfully. So where did you see where were the bright spots, if you will, people and everything else aside? Where did you see? And again, I guess looking already now at the first quarter of this year as well. Where have the business opportunities now materialized, and where are you seeing the activity?
So the business opportunities really materialized first and foremost in the support that we gave to our customers during the early part of the pandemic. I believe that that really resonated within the market, and then we started to see more opportunity from people who knew JSSI but didn't really know too much about us, right? Yeah. So they came to us as an option. Let's put it this way. Yeah. Let's discuss that option, right? And then so I believe that first and foremost, that created opportunity. People who would not necessarily have come and talked to us, in other circumstances, come to us to find out a bit more about us, and that gave us an opportunity to be able to. I'm
sure you feel the same, Mark. Just give me my shot, okay? Just give me my shot.
Give me the opportunity. Like that's
just give me my opportunity.
Yeah. And I think as the year went on, and we started to see flight hours improve, we started to see business aviation start to pick up. With the commercial market so down and on the floor, that created opportunity for new entrants into the business aviation space. So we certainly saw charter operators having a bit of a lift. We certainly saw people who were looking at the opportunity to buy their first aircraft as well. Yeah. And that created opportunity for JSSI. And people who had aircraft, particularly the large cabin aircraft, already on order, they still wanted to take that order. So we saw a lot of new business in terms of new deliveries last year, and that was really, really encouraging from our side of the business. So in the EMEA and APAC region, over 50% of our new enrollments last year were on brand new aircraft deliveries.
50%. 50%.
Exactly.
Whoa.
Yeah, good. So globally, it was just around the 40% mark.
Yeah.
And again, that's as good as it's ever been, if you like, from a JSSI perspective. So I think having the opportunity to be able to talk to customers that we've not necessarily had before, through the service that we offer, and through people looking at independent alternatives, that created good chance for us to get to the table.
Right. Do you think, is there and this may be true as well, is there a perception out in the industry that JSSI is less expensive, and therefore it's an option that I should look at, and maybe some of the economic pressure because of the pandemic certainly led people to, as you say, look at other options that they may not have at the beginning?
That may be one reason, Jeff. I think that, we don't like to get into a bidding war. I mean, you know better than anyone that the cost of maintenance is the cost of maintenance.
Yeah.
So, yes, we do have some commercial advantages that we can pass on to our customer through our volume in terms of the size of our fleet, which is, close to 2,000 aircraft at the moment. So we have a network of MROs, we have a network of suppliers that do create the opportunity for us to have commercial advantages and pass that cost on to the customer.
Right.
But I also like to think that the support structure.
It sounds like what you're saying, a lot of it was just more brand awareness.
It's brand awareness, 100%, and it's a number of things. It's the commercial offering that we have. It's the support structure that we have now. We've grown our technical support team to over 70 guys worldwide. So our customers get a dedicated technical rep that they can go and contact. So they don't have to phone, press 1 for this. Type of service, press 2 for this. We have a kind of one size fits all, if you like, through our technical support team. We've also offered additional services through jet support parts and leasing through our own part supply. We have a number of assets, engine assets that we add for rental. So we have a number of additional services through our advisory services, through parts and leasing that adds value. And of course, I think we listen to customers, right? I have a bias, of course, but I think we listen to customers during the pandemic, try to understand what their requirements are, what they really need, and build an offering that suits to that. So if you add that all together, it becomes quite a strong package. And that's where I think we've kind of been able to be successful. And our brand on the back of that has started to grow. Right.
Now, again, I'd like to sort of turn it more specifically to Asia. I mean, any peculiarities regarding Asia and the kind of, market penetration and response that you're getting here? For instance, you mentioned the number there of 50%. I don't know if that holds true for the Asian buyers of new airplanes as well, or it's a different percentage. Are things different out here? How do you see the market here?
So interestingly, APAC had its strongest year from a new business development that we've ever seen in JSSI. We had a real market penetration last year. Again, roundabout just over 50% in terms of our new business was on new deliveries. We saw some good business coming out of Hong Kong and Singapore. Right. Yeah. Certainly, there was some coming out of Southeast Asia. China was fairly quiet, which we all expect. The Asian market was tough, right? And still is. But our brand awareness and our market penetration was as strong as we've ever seen last year. We continue to work on that. Right, we continue to work on that process through through the likes of your good self to give us the platform to be able to people to understand what we do. But certainly, we believe that Asia now sees JSSI as a real option, and we'll continue to grow that market. I think it's a very, very strategically important market for us. We've just made some good inroads into Japan as well, which is a very strategic market for us. We'll continue to grow in Hong Kong, although you better than anyone know the challenges that produces. And I do believe that as we go into the second part of 2021, Southeast Asia in Indonesia will start seeing some real opportunity as well.
Right. No, I mean for me, the Asian buyer sometimes tends to be rather lazy, and so he takes what's kind of put in front of him. I mean, that's maybe a little biased in that it's. I think at the same time, having said that, I sort of thought, but to a certain degree, that's not true either, because a lot of the buyers now are on their second airplane or more, and they've come down that curve, and actually they just don't accept what's put in front of them anymore. I mean, they're commercially savvy buyers now, and they know there are other options, and they're willing to look at them as well. So as soon as I said that, I take it back, okay? Because the market has matured out here, and so it is more sophisticated, and people do now look more at at all the options. So, but it's fantastic given the conversion rate that you're seeing, and that bodes well for the future also, because certainly new buyers out here do tend to talk amongst themselves as well. So if you can succeed in making that first impression and having that word of mouth then follow, that puts you in good stead for years to come. So
we have seen that, Jeff. I mean, a couple of our deals last year were the direct result of doing a deal earlier. Where the market tends to talk to each other. Look, I agree with what you say. This has been a long haul for us. If I go back to when I joined JSSI 11 years ago and I started coming out to the APAC region, we had nothing. We didn't have any presence in there whatsoever. So over a period of time, we've started to grow the presence in our business development guys, our technical support guys, and our client services people. We've also expanded our services, if you like, to understand what's required for like part supply, for example, in Asia. That's very challenging and that type of thing.
Very challenging.
So as the market's matured, we've tried to go with it. And I think you're right. What we're seeing now is JSSI as seen as an option.
The fruits of your labor, sir. The fruits of your labor.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the most important things that I think we've concentrated on over the last few years is education. Right? I think, as you say, as the market it matures, people are on their second or third aircraft. To educate them on the maintenance requirements of an aircraft, what the actual costs are, what you need to do to operate an aircraft, additional services that are required. That education process it doesn't happen in 5 minutes. That needs to sink in over a period of time. And thankfully for us, we've been able to kind of ride the wave and are now seen as a viable option to the alternatives. And that's what we ask.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, just looking at, you have an extensive package of services that you offer.
Yeah.
Certainly, most of us think of you in the area of tip to tail maintenance programs, but you do a lot of other things now. You go onto the website and you pull down some of those menus, and it's not one item, okay? There are like 10 items, okay? So I guess maybe a little bit on those services and maybe a little bit of insight on. Yeah, you have got your traditional markets, but you've been pushing into new markets, and how's that been? Is that being successful, and where do you see some of those opportunities in some of those other areas? And then we'll talk about the rotary stuff. Okay.
Sure. So I think the additional services have been very important to JSSI. Through our solutions company, we offer like advisory services, for example, where a customer who doesn't necessarily have a program or doesn't necessarily have the experience in dealing with an engine event, right? We're able to follow that engine event using our technical expertise and our access to part support through for them. And then we manage that event on their behalf. That's been a really successful product in that it introduces the customer to service, introduces what JSSI can do. Couple that with jet support parts and leasing. Very important to be able to keep costs under control. And first of all, the intent of parts and leasing was to be able to provide services for our own events. We spend close to $300 million a year on maintenance. So how can we keep those costs under control? And the most expensive part of that is parts. So how can we create an opportunity where we're supplying parts for our own events? That then soon became clear that the third-party market that's a massive opportunity as well. People are looking for part support. If they can't get them from the traditional ways, then we saw that as an opportunity to deal with our customers, and then that's expanded as well. Through rental engines as well and exchange engines. That's another option that we've started to work on. We've expanded those services as well through an MRO support package, which is an MRO kind of management package through invoicing through work scopes and everything. That's growing in the APAC region.
Yeah, these are all different touch points to potential customers.
All different touch points to provide a whole range of services. Yeah. And of course, we then have Conklin Dedeker, which concentrates on the costs of operating an aircraft. So we're able to look at doing asset inspections for lenders. So every year we can go and do an asset inspection for them to make sure that their asset is being looked after and maintained properly. We do asset inspections for people who are looking at buying an aircraft. We do the cost prediction through Conklin Dedeker. We can do the support services through our parts. And then, of course, we have our core business, which is our hourly cost maintenance program. Yep. So the support services, or the sister companies, let's put it that way, we're looking at adding opportunity for customer from thinking of purchasing aircraft, what it's going to cost, how can you do it, the tax implications, right through to how you can support it through an hourly cost maintenance program. And this is has been a major step change, if you like, in the offerings that JSSI have when you consider what we had like 10, 11 years ago. Yeah. And I believe this has been a great opportunity for us to spread our wings into the market and people get a taste of what we do. Yeah,
I mean, it allows you to be, if you will, integrated more into that whole ownership experience that hopefully ends up being a customer that you likewise support through that whole ownership experience as well, if you will, right from when he says, I'm thinking of buying an airplane, who should I talk to? And so right through to the end when he maybe replaces that airplane.
I'll give you a great example of that, Jeff. Last year, we started talking to a customer in the early part of the year who was looking to buy an aircraft, his first aircraft. He had no experience in aviation. This is an APAC customer, no experience in aviation in any way, shape or form. So we were able to work with him on the type of aircraft that's going to fit his requirements, the implications of the cost, the operational cost, everything that he needed to be able to understand how he can get into the aviation, into aviation, what the implications were, how he would go about buying that from a legal perspective as well, and then ultimately how we can support it through our HCM. The project was, a 6 to 7 month project. Ultimately, ended up in buying an aircraft that he's extremely happy with, that he's now operating every single week, and is now a great customer of ours. And we would have never have been able to do that if we didn't have the additional services that are now available.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. It allows you, as I said, to have different touch points to bring that customer into the fold. The risk of it also is you've got a lot of more touch points where you cannot make a good first impression. So again, it gets back to the people, and if you will, those guys out there with the JSSI brand on their shirt, and everyone has to keep that in mind, that it's that first impression that makes such a difference as well. So
it is, and the service levels are really important to me in the company. Yeah. I think that you know as well as I do, Jeff, that when something goes wrong, everyone remembers it.
Unfortunately.
Exactly. You could have 10 years of great service and no one will really remember that. When it goes wrong, that's at the front of everyone's mind. And look, nothing's ever perfect, right? But from a support perspective, it's how you deal with it, right? If you deal with it in the right way, then generally you can work through it. And it's vitally important to us. Everyone in our company needs to understand that you need to provide the best service out there, because if you don't, then you're just mixing in with the others. All right. So you need to stand out. You need differentiators. You need to have something that the customer can say, this gives me to you.
So can you talk just a bit about what you're doing on the rotary side?
So the rotary.
When did you introduce the rotary services? Because it's not that long.
So interestingly, we've had rotary contracts for over 10 years.
Right. Okay.
But about 4 or 5 years ago, we really started to look at what we needed to do from a support perspective and a program perspective to be able to bring out to the rotary market.
Because it's completely different.
Completely different. I mean, it's unbelievably different.
Yeah.
So to the extent that, we obviously invested in helicopter specialists within our technical support team, which was much needed. They understand the market. They understand the support that's required. They understand the assets. They understand the customer. We had to invest internally as well from a pricing perspective and a parts perspective to be able to supply the material and understand the cost as well. So there was a huge amount of infrastructure that we had to put in specifically for the helicopter market, literally because it is such a different market, and it's a challenging market. There's no doubt. Right, these assets,
and challenging from the standpoint of the client too. The customer is just
100%.
He's different completely.
100%. In the helicopter market, you're not necessarily always dealing with high net worth individuals who are using these assets for as business tools or pleasure. These things are workhorses. So they're out doing specific jobs. They're doing, lots of cycles. They're doing lots of hours. And, there are tight margins in the helicopter market. So if a helicopter is not flying, that has a massive impact on the operator. Yeah. So
but at the same time, because a lot of their work is, if you will, under a contract, they need that predictable maintenance, though.
They do. They need the predictable maintenance. They need the availability because, as you say, these things are under contract, and there are some pretty tough clauses in those contracts about availability. If the business goes down, then you have the opportunity to try and support that. And look, the worst comes to the worst, you can charter another business jet. When a helicopter that's working under a specific contract goes down, that's not always an option. That helicopter is down, and that's costing money. So the support that's required is a completely different animal. Yeah. And can
you say how much of your business is on the rotary side at the moment?
I would say about 10% of our business is on the rotary side at the moment. So it's not massive business for us, but there is opportunity. There is certainly opportunity. I think it's extremely challenging in part supply. That's one of the biggest issues, and engine support. But one of the things that I think we bring to the market on here is the fact that we have global reach. So if you can't get a part from a certain supplier, then where else do you go? And what we find in the helicopter market is that those operators and companies don't necessarily have the experience or the resources to go and actually do that. Right. So if they can't get a part from their supplier that they've always dealt with, they just don't know what to do. Right. Yeah. So, and they don't have the resources to know what to do. So, our technical team is able to come in and step in, and through the parts team is to be able to support. Is it always perfect? No. Right. I think it's very, the part supply in helicopters is far more challenging than in fixed wing.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. But most people understand that. And as long as we can provide those options to the customer, then I think we are more than a viable alternative.
Right. Yeah, my first experience with the rotary industry market was it's so fragmented.
Yeah.
And it's so specialized as well. And so it's just, it's in some instances I look at it and go, its technology actually is so far behind that which we find in private aviation. But at the same time, when you talk to the OEMs and everything else, but we have to serve so many different mission segments or categories and so on. And it's just, like I said, so fragmented, and that must make it an absolute nightmare for you guys to try to put programs together. So, because you can't maybe get that big distribution base to take non-recurring costs, if you will, and spread them out over, because it just doesn't exist. So
it all adds to the complexity. There are so many different variations as well in helicopter types. And again, they do different things. So even if you've got the same helicopter type and you've got a number, the way that they operate the helicopter makes it completely different. The requirements for a 139 operating here and a 139 there are completely different. So support structure is hugely important. It really is, and I think that's why we've been able to get into the market, and we are steadily growing, is people are able to say, look, we understand that the cost is the cost. We understand that there are certain challenges, but if we can come to you and you can try and help alleviate those challenges by supplying these parts or giving us an option when we need it, then that is that seems to be where we're making hay and stepping into the market. Is it ever going to be 50% of our business? Probably not. Right. But there is good opportunity.
Right. Okay. I guess last, if you will, at least 3/4 of the year is still ahead of us, and the next 3-5 years. Where do you see? I mean, you are business development, so where do you see the opportunities kind of for this year? And I guess relating to maybe Asia Pacific, but it doesn't necessarily need to be. Where do you see the opportunities for the rest of the year? What do you think sort of the market trend is at the moment? Everyone seems to feel we're on a steady return to normal, if you will. And then what's your outlook maybe further than that, 2 or 3 years out?
So this is a really interesting question. I think business aviation has a massive opportunity now, right? Commercial aviation is still very much down in the dumps, and people are looking to get into the business aviation world, right? First-time buyers. Every broker I speak to seems to have more activity than they've ever seen before. We're certainly seeing transactions happening without a shadow of a doubt. Both new and in service.
Last year was our busiest year. We did 19 transactions, which for us, given all our other businesses, was extraordinary to a certain extent. So
and that kind of falls in line with what we were seeing in terms of new business development. So that creates that opportunity. But I also think it's hugely important that the business aviation world doesn't waste this opportunity, right? That we don't look too short term, right? To try and make up for any potential losses that we've had in the pandemic. I think we've got to try and say to ourselves, let's get these people who want to come into business aviation, let's keep these people in, and our business will then grow, right? And it will then be seen as not just and I'm going to be a bit flippant here, not just a rich man's toys that people have been playing with. Right? It is a proper industry for business support, and it's a business tool. And I think we'll see more of that if we treat our customers right, and if we are if we look to keep costs under control and service levels at the highest that we can. So that creates opportunity. It is going to be tough though. We're going to see regional variations. I think if you look at the numbers, the States, the US is really starting to climb back as where it was pre-pandemic. But where we are in Europe, where I am in Europe, for example, pretty tough. The UK in terms of business flight hours is nearly 65% down on where it was pre-pandemic, and of course we've got Brexit as well. Borders are closing in Europe, right? Which is making it very tough. But there is opportunity in Eastern Europe where business aviation seems to be growing hugely. So I think there are going to be regional variations. In terms of APAC, I think the same challenges from a border, the borders need to open so that people can start flying again. I certainly see some choppy waters ahead for the rest of this year. Right? It's not that it won't be a good year. I think it's just going to be challenging still. There are going to be certain things that are going to challenge us. We have to find a way through. And I think we do have opportunity to keep those new customers. And if we do that, going into 22 and 23, I think we'll soon see business aviation, pardon the pun, take off, right? And we'll have greater opportunity for more steady growth in the next couple of years.
Yeah. No, we certainly have new clients coming to us, and we don't normally have acquisition agreements, but we certainly have a handful of them at the moment. But yeah, as you say, they're first time, not even first time buyers. They're first time buyers. They're first time users,
yes.
And there's certainly an obligation, and unfortunately, it's not necessarily everyone feels the same way, but you and I do, that we need to handle them with a little bit of special care, because we want them to stay in the industry. And so we don't want them to, wake up 3 months from now and get that invoice and just go, what did I do? So there is certainly an obligation for us that are in the industry to make sure that they're educated as much as possible, so they stay in the industry. So
I agree. Like, that's why transparency, if you like, on all costs is so important to JSSI. Yeah. And that's where I think the additional services through Conklin Dedeker, the appraisal services, the advisory services, and the openness of our HEM hourly cost maintenance program, that's why it's so important to us, because I think people who are coming into the industry need to feel, right, that the cost that they're spending is true value. And the only way that they can see that is to understand and be educated on what they're spending their money on and why. Right? Yeah. So transparency is hugely important to us, and it will create that opportunity. I'd like to say all the brokers that we see, we speak to, are seeing plenty of activity that will manifest itself into transactions. New deliveries may well slow down in the second half of the year and into next year. Right, I think the pandemic may have a knock-on effect for that, yet to be seen. Right, so Let's see what happens. But that may be balanced by other transactions and people coming into the market for the first time and buying in-service aircraft. So again, we'll have to see. Consolidation, I think, is something we all need to understand will happen. Now, I think there's management companies will probably start coming together. We're certainly seeing some of the larger, companies like VistaJet, for example, are taking more control of or taking over some of the smaller operators. So I think we'll start seeing some consolidation or more consolidation in the market. But again, that's probably not a bad thing. It adds to opportunity.
Right. Okay. Yeah, no, thanks, Mark, for joining us. I think that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to. As always, appreciate your comments and insights on the market, and certainly how your view on the Asia-Pacific region, and likewise for the insight you gave us on your rotary programs and so on. So thanks again for the time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Always a pleasure, and always good to catch up with you. And enjoy your weekend.
Yeah, thanks.